Hello friends, this is Odds, and as you might remember, a couple months back we did a gameplay analysis of a really interesting Trapper game, where we broke down everything that happened and followed the game step by step, analyzing every decision that the players made. It was a really fun video to put together, the reception on it was phenomenal, and ever since I've been looking forward to analyzing some more gameplay, and today we have just that. And it was in fact one of you guys who brought this to my attention, a very interesting and instructive game played by a Georgian streamer who I wasn't familiar with, who apparently can play a pretty mean trapper. And as it so happens, he regularly records all of his games, so not only was he okay with me using this footage, he actually provided it himself, which is great. That's exactly what we're gonna do right now. Before we get fully immersed in the game, we're actually going to take a minute to talk about the map that we've been sent to. We find ourselves in the Red Shop, one of the Autohaven family maps. This is a very recognizable map for one of its structures, the garage-looking building that always spawns near the center, as well as the shack that spawns directly opposite from it, also close to the center. These two buildings will always spawn in the same location, although the direction that they're facing can be completely random. One of these buildings will also hold the basement, and since it's so close to the center, it will be a fairly easy basement to get into. Not so much of a basement that you want to invest fully, because there are so many escape routes pretty much leading everywhere. It's not a basement that is particularly easy to defend, but it's one you want to keep in mind. The central building also has a guaranteed chest spawn, as well as many pallets around it, and two windows that will always open on opposite sides, making it a very popular, very strong looping route. Trapping around this central building is very predictable, but at the same time it's very effective, so it's something that we'll have to consider. On top of this, we have two broken vehicles also on fixed locations. This can be the Autohaven broken vehicles, such as the bus or the broken truck, and you'll notice that this map has a tendency to create huge dead zones where nothing really spawns. There's no pallets, just lots of trees. Usually from my experience, they spawn around here and here. So in practice, even though this is a large on the larger side map, it feels much smaller, and this will be something that will come into play later into the game. And before we finally get to the game itself, we're gonna have a look at the perks that our killer is bringing. On the top and left, we've got Pop Goes the Weasel and Overcharge, gen regression perks, but notice that these are very active perks, as opposed to Ruin, which works by itself, or Corrupt Intervention, which also works without you having to do anything. These perks will only slow down the game as long as you kick generators. Pop Goes the Weasel can regress a generator by 25% when you kick it after you hook someone, and every time you kick a generator, Overcharge will add a skill check to it next time a survivor interacts with it. Now this skill check is not that difficult to land, in fact good survivors will land it pretty often. Overcharge might be worth it on a doctor who can make your skill checks appear randomly across the screen, or perhaps with someone running something that makes skill checks harder to land, such as Lullaby or Unnerving. Being by itself in this build, it is a bit of an oddball, and will definitely force this trapper to be very aggressive. On the bottom on the right, we've got two other perks that are just information perks. Thrilling Tremors on the right will trigger every time we grab someone with a hefty cooldown, and will let us know which generators are being worked on. This can be used very aggressively with Pop Goes the Weasel. If a generator is not being worked on, it will be blocked for 16 seconds and we'll see it in white. And if we know that that generator has work or is about to be done, we can very quickly hook the person, go to that gen and kick it with Pop Goes the Weasel and apply Overcharge to it. Discordance will let us know when two people are working on the same generator. This can be a really good perk to disrupt early generator repairs and prevent the last generator from being worked on by multiple survivors. It gives you a lot of information. However, as a trapper who needs time to set up, it will be very challenging to use these two perks together. So we'll see how he does it, if we consider the fact that, as you might see, he actually has no add-ons whatsoever. A trapper without a back add-on cannot hold more than one bear trap at once, which means that he'll have to be very smart with his management of bear traps and set them up very efficiently during the game. Let's see how he manages. So in the very first second of the game, our trapper has already made a decision. Seeing that one bear trap spawned right next to him and that he cannot carry it, and knowing that he might not return to this area for a long time or maybe ever for the rest of the match, he decides to set up another bear trap in the loop right next to it so that he can immediately pick it up and head to the location where he needs to be. So this cordons goes off right in front of our killer, indicating that 2 or more survivors are working on that particular generator. It's a no-brainer, we have to go there and disrupt these repairs. At this point, 2 notable things have happened. One of the survivors is probably staying back in the previous generator. David has decided to make a run for the main building, but has found himself in this dead zone with nothing around it and will probably be taking a hit. And this cordons has also gone off in another generator in the distance. This is one of the worst things you can see as a killer, because if you don't down someone relatively quickly and fail to apply proper pressure, these gens will be flying. So chasing the David in this direction and potentially interrupting the next generator could be a really good choice. The David is hit and receives a speed boost from the hit. He should have gone straight for the door to his right and used the entire momentum from the hit. Instead, he wastes a good chunk of this momentum by going through the window. The killer prepares to follow him into the building, but sees his head poke out on the left at the last second, meaning that he's trying to either fake it and go back or that he's hesitated. Either way, he now needs to go straight for him. He does not fake it and instead runs behind the back of the shop. Due to his poor pathing, David goes down very quickly, which allows our killer to make a decision. This generator has been worked on by 2 people for at least 12 seconds since we've heard it pop twice, perhaps more if one of them was there early. He will try to interrupt it as well. If he interrupts this generator, the one behind him only has 1 person working on it and he'll be able to disrupt 3 people at once. But before he does that, he realizes that he has a trap on his hand that he needs to get rid of. And seeing that the David is outside of the building and no longer has a proper line of sight with him, he decides to use this time to set up a really cheeky trap right in front of this chest. Due to the uneven surface of this floor, the trap is actually very well obscured, and this will catch anybody trying to loop the back of the shop or trying to loot the chest. And with this trap out of the way, our killer can finally head to the generator that needs his attention right now. He will go there and quickly assess the situation. We can see that both survivors are trying to run for safety, and judging by a quick glance, we can tell that the generator has been repaired to around 80%. This means that a single survivor will take around 16 seconds and 2 survivors can probably do it under 10 seconds. These 2 need to be chased out, distracted and pressured in some way to get them away from it so that we can hopefully block it with Thrilling Tremors and pop it with Pop Goes the Weasel. And that's exactly what a trapper will try to do. Seeing that Kate lost a lot of momentum and took very strange pathing, our trapper wastes no time, picks up the trap from the ground and continues the chase. Indeed, she runs herself into another dead zone without anything at all next to her, so he will commit to her. She looks behind her, does a dead hard that leads her anywhere, our trapper will remember that, and now immediately picks her up and has a look around with Thrilling Tremors. Seeing all generators blocked confirms that we have indeed time to get to them and hit them with Pop Goes the Weasel, and that's exactly what our trapper will be doing. Notice that David was picked up from the ground very quickly and healed very quickly by Ace, who had a medkit, but he pays no mind. Instead, he goes and pops it. Preventing the loss of this generator is critical because your trapper will try to set up his perimeter right around this area. You can see also that the David is running away in the distance and he will be completely ignored in favor of setting up more traps around this perimeter. And the next trap that he will set up is rather interesting. I believe this is a reactionary trap, seeing the path that survivors have taken in the past. Seeing that the Kate run through this area when she was pressured before, our trapper knows that if survivors behave in the exact same way next time he catches them in this generator, this trap will work. And talking about traps, the Claudette steps on the one that we placed earlier. So our trapper has to go there right now before she can struggle out. Right as he goes through the window, the Claudette frees herself from the trap. The last thing that he wants her to see is his red light and him looking at her, to give her the impression that he's going to chase her in a straight line, when in fact he's going to do a quick turn and catch her before she can get to the window. This would be a great time to put her in the basement, but again, if rescues happen too quick, he will not have time to set up. So instead, he eyes the next bear trap that he can pick up, keeps an eye on the Kate, and heads back to place the trap. He will not place the trap inside of the Kate and inside of the Claudette. Instead, he will place it in a way where they both can't really see him do it. During this time, Kate gets rescued, and you can tell that she's baiting an attack for borrowed time. Our trapper very smartly doesn't bite the bait, although sometimes if you don't have say the best of luck, you might as well just hit her. And here she tries to bait a grab, letting us know that they have 2 perks. The person that rescued her has borrowed time, which is very obvious, and she herself has decisive strike and is trying to use it on us to gain time. The trapper doesn't fall for it and goes for a normal attack instead. Unfortunately for him, he did not wait enough, and instead of 15 seconds, he hit her at the 14-second mark. meaning that she does get borrowed time and that he's wasted a little bit of his own time as well. In retrospect, he should have probably never waited. He now hits the David, buying himself a little bit more time, but decides not to pick up the Claudette, again realizing that Kate is in a complete dead zone. He has seen the dead heart before, and she is constantly looking behind her, so he will anticipate the dead heart, wait for it, and hit her at the end. But still, with the knowledge that she probably has decisive strike, he will not pick her up and instead use this opportunity to pick up a trap and bring it closer to his perimeter. He will also try to pressure the people that were healing here. We can see that one of these has fully healed now. And then we come across the Claudette to our left. If she run towards the shack, he would have to let her go. However, after taking that hit, she does a 180 and heads directly for the building, which should result in an easy hit. Our trapper here will pretend to go in a straight line, make her think that he's committing to that window, when in fact he is preparing to go around and catch her. And right as we go around the corner, 4 things happen all at once. First, we spot the David going to the right away from our perimeter. Second, the Claudette gets to use her lithe to create distance between us, making her very fast for a few seconds. Third, the Ace steps on one of our traps. And fourth, the Kate, the Obsession, who was far back, picks herself up from the ground with Unbreakable. And the Ace, of course, is the easiest target and the one our trapper will try to go for. He hits him on the trap, breaking him free, tries to pick up the trap, realizes that he already has a trap on his hand, and quickly puts it away in a loop nearby in order to be able to pick it up. But first, he will pick up the Ace and place him in a very centralized hook to our perimeter. And noting that everybody in the team is injured and needs to be healed, he knows that he has a little bit of time to pick up traps and reset them. The one he will go for first is the one at the shop. He will trust that this trap will work again and doesn't hesitate to reset it on the same spot. This is something that I don't personally recommend you do too often, unless the trap is in a really good spot. If survivors are smart and they're on comms, they will tell each other about it once it's worked a single time, so keep that in mind. He goes and strays really far away from his perimeter, kicks this generator with Pop Goes the Weasel to regress it, because there's no better target. But keep in mind, this is not a generator that he will probably want to defend. It's these 3 generators that he's headed towards right now that he wants to really defend. A rescue occurs, and it's now time to pick a target. Of course, we do not want to deal with decisive and borrowed time, so David will be targeted, but seeing that Ace run head-on into a trap, it is again the easy target, so we will hit him and leave him slugging on the ground, as we cannot pick him up yet without risking decisive. Again, we will use this time to set up more traps, and hey, catch the David who just stepped on another. We do not have to worry about decisive with David, as he had not been hooked recently, so he will take the place of the Ace in this previous hook. Next, our trapper will go back to the Ace and prepare a little maneuver that will do 2 things at once. First, he will put down a trap facing outwards and come back for the one that Ace stepped on, and then he will pick up the Ace on top of this pallet, body blocking the other end of the pallet, hopefully. And this, as I've said, achieves 2 things at once. First, it resets one of the traps into a more useful spot, and second, it prevents anybody from going for a pallet safe. If one of the sides has a trap and the other one is being blocked by his body, nobody can potentially drop that pallet to save Ace. That being said, Ace had been unhooked about 57 or 58 seconds prior, so if he had decisive strike, he could have still used it by 1 second. Our trapper should have waited a little bit more, but lucky for him, Ace did not have decisive. Ace is placed on a hook also very close to our perimeter. We can see a generator pop in the distance, and our trapper is not bothered at all. These people are going down fast. They will begin to die very quickly if they keep going down this quick, and he has 3 generators that he is patrolling very aggressively. A rescue happens and our trapper makes a guess. First of all, he picks up a trap to fill his hand, and seeing that the person on the left is about to hit stage 2 on the hook, he correctly assumes that the rescuer of the Ace is gonna go and very quickly get him out. He hits the Obsession and will chase her preferentially. Notice that the David, who has borrowed time and probably DS as well, is trying to get his attention very desperately, but he does not fall for it. He needs to down this person before she gets too far. She drops the pallet early, but it doesn't matter. She will make a very bad play around here. He threatens to put down a trap. She makes a misplay, uses the heart a third time unsuccessfully and goes down. She is now in a prime spot to be put in the basement. And as we head to the basement, please notice that our trapper has full awareness of where everybody is. Every survivor is accounted for. First, we're carrying the Kate, second, we're being pestered by the David, and the last two survivors who are still injured just finished a generator that again, we do not care for. We will probably see these two survivors heal each other in the upcoming seconds, and that's exactly what happens, and the David will probably linger or go back to them. At any rate, our trapper has a little bit of time to reset traps. And here we can see him do the same maneuver of putting a trap down, then picking up another to replace it in his hand. This next trap he could place somewhere, or better yet, as long as a person remains in the basement, keeping it in your hand can be very, very strong. When people go down the basement, they lose awareness of what you do up and above the surface. David will decide for some reason to run in the open. That heart will buy him a little bit of time, but not much, and he will eventually go down. But you do not want to pick him up just yet. A trap has been disarmed on the other side of the building, and someone is surely coming for the rescue. This is where having a trap on your hand is very strong. He will place it here to maybe catch the rescuer off guard, and that seems to do the trick as it corrals her into another trap. The trap is perfectly placed, which allows him to hit her through the window. This person might have borrowed time, but still, she's worth chasing. We know the other person who disabled the trap is still around. So our trapper will probably try to down her just to buy himself more time, maybe try to go for the 4-man's luck. He does down her indeed and does not pick her up, instead rotating back. The David might have been picked up, or maybe he had Unbreakable, but at any rate, not everybody's going to escape the situation. Right at this point, two things happen. One, the David is seen, but another person is hurt healing, so he knows that all three people are here. David has a pallet and he decides to just pick up the Claudette and begins to look around, trying to look the Ace, which is the third survivor that he has not yet located. Ace is right there, in fact, so he will hook her and then immediately move back to him. Seeing that he's healthy and he's going outside of his perimeter, he decides to just entirely give up on him, and that pays off as the David very clumsily again steps on yet another trap. He has not been hooked and he's now dead on hook, so he will get it out of the way very, very quickly. And again do the same maneuver. Trap one side of the pallet, pick up a trap, and then body block the other side with your own model, so that no pallet save can ever occur. But seeing that the survivors have healed themselves pretty quickly, it's very obvious that they're not up to the task, and that now there's only two survivors remaining. And in fact, they are both right here. And the strategy that he employs here doesn't really matter, but here's what he does and why I think he does it. He hits the Ace, who has a medkit, and then immediately chases the Claudette. He believes that if he chases the Claudette and manages to down her relatively quickly, he will have an easier time finding the Ace. Why? Because people who are hit, who have a medkit, and who are not being actively chased, very often will just sit on that spot, heal, and then begin to hide. We'll see if it pays off for our trapper. We can see him swing kinda crazily to try to get her attention, distract her from the trap that is very obviously there. No pallet has spawned here, which makes this a really dangerous place, and she is forced back to this little tile. Again, he hits, trying to corral her into the trap, but it doesn't even matter. The Claudette just makes a really dumb move, and on the hook she goes. There's not a hook very close, so he will have to get there and then guess where the Ace has gone. But seeing that the Ace healed just now, mere seconds after getting hit, we can guess that he did not go very far, that he will still be lingering in the area, and that's exactly where a trapper heads. And unsurprisingly, we see some scratch marks, and what happens next is just the Ace pretty much giving up. A little noise is heard, our trapper notices it, hits, and I just don't know what this Ace was thinking, to be honest. But at any rate, with this last catch, the game is over, and our trapper achieves a merciless killer for his effort. As we head into the post-game lobby, and you guys realize that this is actually my footage and not somebody else's, and that I made this whole thing up, I hope you realize that even though survivors certainly made a lot of mistakes during this game, These mistakes will not be punished by themselves. As a trapper or as any other killer, there are many strategies at your disposal that you can employ to delay the game and buy yourself time other than just wanting ruin. So hopefully this was a fun game to watch, and hopefully the next time I do something like this, you guys send me some really cool footage so I don't have to analyze my own games. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you very soon.